Making sure you are prepared for retirement is not easy. It is not easy to know exactly how much money you need. It's not exactly easy to see how much you're going to spend because you haven't done it yet. However, I'm going to walk you through a framework to understand how much you need to save for retirement to put yourself in the best position possible to get the most life out of your money. Once again, my name is Taublieb. I am a financial planner and I'm also the vice president of Root Financial Partners, and I help people retire early, otherwise known as helping people know when are they in a position where work is now optional. Once again, if this has been helpful or if you're looking when it comes to any of these videos for a customized plan, that's what I help people do, feel free to check that out in the description. If not, if you're just looking for more information or guidance, that is why I make these videos as well. So I want to help as many people as possible. Please do subscribe to make sure you're notified if you're interested in saving on taxes, if you're interested on investing better, or just living a better life with your money. One of the toughest things is knowing how much money you need to save for retirement, because you might have seen a video or maybe an article or just something that says you need $1 million or $5 million or $10 million, and let me squash that right now. The reason for that, let's pretend super basic examples, and if you're new to watching these videos, I do a ton of examples because I think it resonates. But tell me if there's another example you'd prefer or another style. I'm not married to these styles. If you've been watching for some time and you really like these, please let me know. Let's go through these super basic examples. Let's assume that you're the most disciplined investor ever and you've got a good strategy, but you love what you're doing in terms of your lifestyle. And your lifestyle costs you $500,000 a year. I know, absurd, but that's the reality. I'm just gonna take a super basic example. And you have $1 million, okay? Now I have $1 million and I'm a terrible investor. However, I only wanna spend $40,000 a year. Well, the reality is I'm gonna last a lot longer than you, even if you're a disciplined investor, because you're spending more. Why bring that up at all? Well, if you, for example, let's assume you're super disciplined, you have a good investment strategy. Well, even with a great strategy, with those expenses, you're gonna run out of money in 2 to 2.5 years. Now even if I don't have a great investment strategy, a great mindset, my money's gonna last longer because I'm spending less. This is obvious, you know this. The reason I bring it up at all is because when people say you need $1 million or 5 or 10 or 2 or how much money do you need, it really doesn't matter when it comes to what your neighbor's doing or what your coworker's doing, or that should not impact your retirement at all, because there's the portfolio, but then there's also the Social Security, there's the pension, there's rental income, there's inheritance. Maybe there's one of those, maybe there's a combination. But remember that when it comes to planning, there's not a yes or no, black or white answer. I have clients who have $10 million and they are living a very secure retirement. I also have clients with $10 million who do not live the most comfortable retirement, and they needed education when it comes to investing, when it comes to spending, to get a sense of how do they make sure they never run out of money. And too many people think, wow, okay, what if I have $1 million? Is that enough? It depends on all of these various factors. I have another client who doesn't have more than $100,000 and they are retired and loving it, and they're never gonna run the risk of running out of money. Should I say never going to run out of money? There's always that little risk of, who knows what, but I'll say they're on track to never run out of money. Well, how could that be? And they're spending $70,000 a year. They have a healthy pension. So it's not just about a portfolio value. There's various factors that lead to a successful retirement. Dave Ramsey says that you should save 15% of your income. And I actually like Dave Ramsey's point here. There's a lot of points I like about Dave Ramsey. There's other points I don't think are so helpful, but I like to take, okay, what's applicable, what's helpful, what's not. Let's just understand that. Well, if you're gonna save 15% of your income, that's great. It's a good starting spot. I see why he says it. Sometimes you just gotta say something. The reality is to get motion happening, but I don't love it, because the reality is if your income is extremely low and you make $30,000 a year and you save $3,000 to $3,500, $4,000, that is not gonna put you in a position where you can most likely retire, unless there's some significant other factors I'm not aware of. So I like it, committing to that 15% every single year. That is wonderful. As income rises, saying I'm not gonna go below that. I like 15%, but what if you wanna spend a whole lot more than that and you wanna retire early? Because I talk about retiring early. Do Dave Ramsey's baby steps. Does what he talks about of 15%. Is that the most applicable? Let's look at an example. Let's look at two people and they both wanna retire at age 65. Let's say that they both make $75,000 a year, and let's assume they're saving 10% of their income. So not Dave Ramsey's 15%, but the experts of make sure to save 10% of your income. Now, one extra variable, I'm gonna both say they get 8%. They're both gonna get an 8% rate of return. Well, person A, they're going to be 25 years old and person B is going to be 55 years old. So person A, who's 25, wants to retire in 40 years when they'll be 65, and person B is 55, going to retire in 10 years. Here's the difference in values. Person A has $1,942,000, whereas person B has $108,000. Once again, super basic example, but it's obvious. And the reason it's obvious is because there were less years. So just that idea of save 15%, okay, that's great if you start from a very early age. But once again, if you start from an early age while your income is lower, it's not as helpful because 15% of a smaller amount isn't as great as if you're making $100,000 and now you're saving $15,000 a year. Why do I bring up these super basic examples? Well, I bring them up because it's not an exact science when it comes to, great, is it all about age? Clearly it's not, because I just showed you two people who have very different ages and they're both saving the same amount, getting the same rates of return. So we know it's not that. So what is it? It's about life expectancy. It's about how much you want to save, and it's about how much you want to spend in retirement, and you top it off with these other considerations. This number 4, are you doing tax planning? Are you investing well? Those are very important, but we've got to lay the foundation first. So let's do that. Number 1, estimate your future income needs. What does lifestyle look like today? There are things you're doing today that won't be there in the future. You're saving to a 401k today. You're doing Roth IRA contributions. That comes out of your paycheck today. You're not going to have to do that in retirement, but maybe you want to do extra travel. So some of these things get offset. I tell people it's not about having an exact science of what am I going to spend to the dime, to the penny of in retirement, but have a good sense of what you want to spend. Is it $5,000 a month? Is it $10,000 a month? And don't be skimpy on it. I truly want you to go, what is your dream retirement? For some people, the dream is $6,000 a month. For others, it's $14,000 a month. There's not a right or wrong. Just be realistic so you're planning for the right thing. Don't forget inflation. So let's just pretend that you're 50 years old and you want to retire at age 65 and you want to spend, I don't know, let's say $60,000 a year. Well, with inflation, we need to know how much money is that going to be in the future. That's the whole purpose. So $60,000 today, that's great. That's today's dollars. In the future, if we average inflation at 3%, which it's been much higher recently, it's been lower in the past, but average at 3%, that means $60,000 is the equivalent of having $101,000 when we're retired. If we want to use 4% instead of 3%, it means we need $117,000 to represent the same quality of life, the same purchase of food and gas and bills and just all of those lifestyle things. That's what the equivalent is. That's why we think about inflation. Let's use 3% just for super basic math. Instead of 101,000, you want $100,000. Now, if you don't have Social Security, if you don't have rental income, if you don't have a pension, if you don't have any inheritance, well, then the reality is you need that full $100,000 to come from your portfolio. $100,000 got to come from somewhere. I'm going to pretend that you do have Social Security. So you have $100,000 that's coming from your portfolio, but you also have 2 Social Security benefits at $2,500 each. Let's use round numbers. So now you have $60,000. 2,500 times 12, $30,000, and we have 2 of those, both you and your spouse. So $60,000 coming from Social Security, $100,000 needs to come from your portfolio or something like inheritance, like rental income, like pension, in addition to the Social Security you have to meet your living expenses. So $100,000 minus the $60,000 means $40,000 has to come from somewhere for your retirement. That tells us that we need to make sure we don't run out of money. We have Social Security, but we need to make sure we don't run out of money. And how much do we need is the real question to make sure that we can have $40,000 coming from not Social Security, but our portfolio. So what we do is we divide 4% by that $40,000 that we need, which tells me that if we had $1 million, that we would never run the risk of running out of money, but that's for 30 years. This 4% rule was done by Bill Bengen. That's where the research was done. And what Bill Bengen says is that if you are invested in intermediate term US bonds and US large caps, that you will never run the risk of running out of money for 30 plus years. But if you retire early, even call it at 65, great, you're running out of money at 95. What if you live past that? You don't want to run the risk of running out of money. At least I wouldn't. So we look a little deeper, and there's more research through Guyton's guardrails approach done by John Guyton that says don't just invest in these 2 asset classes. Take it a step further and invest better. Invest in a diversified mix that allows you to take between 5.2 to 5.5% of your portfolio and never run the risk of running out of money for 40 plus years, not 30, but 40. So if we take that 5.5% divided by the 40,000, that tells us that we need $727,000. So if we need $727,000, that's what's going to help us, in addition to Social Security, to be able to spend $100,000 a year. It's a super basic framework of understanding what this means for your retirement, but you're probably thinking, do I need to save 10% or 15% or 20%? Come up with an inflation rate and use a super basic retirement calculator. I'm going to put one in the description below. Use this one if it's helpful. If you want a customized strategy to maximize your taxes and your investments and everything with this, that's what I love to help people do. If not myself, a member of my team would gladly help you build that. But I also want you to know that it's more than just that. When you're working with a planner, you want to make sure you enjoy their company. It's not you're just meeting with your boring financial guy or girl or they. You are meeting with whoever you think is your best fit to help you into this next stage of life to maximize your quality of life. So what I want you to do is interview different planners, either through YouTube videos, through podcasts, get a good sense of who you think you vibe with, because there's the financial aspects to this, but I don't want you to like what they're saying financially and all of a sudden dread these meetings, which I know is unlikely the case, but I've seen it where people say, all right, I like my advisor, but it's stressful and the meetings aren't impactful and it doesn't resonate. And that to me is not proper planning. So quick side note on that is if you want financial guidance, if you want to go through a process to just see how we help people at no cost, reach out to us. If you're looking for just more information on these videos, subscribe. I love helping make more videos and content, so please comment below if there's a certain topic or what resonated with you. So really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you don't know, I am the host of the Early Retirement Podcast, and this is what I love doing. I help people create a custom strategy to retire early. You can always reach out to me or a member of our team here at Root, and we would be happy to walk you through our planning process to show you how we can help you get more life out of your money.